Hi everyone and welcome back to the Power Africa channel. My name is Paul King and here we make learning languages, especially French, simple, practical and fun. In my last video, I talked about the secrets of French pronunciation and we explained how single vowels are used and how they sound, and also how the combination of vowels works. And today I'll just continue from where we stopped to take the lesson a little bit further, and we are going to be focusing on consonants. Now let's get straight into it. Consonants can have changing sounds. Consonants change completely depending on the letters that follow them. And we want to look at them one after the other. And let's take a look at the consonant C in French. Now, the standard letter C, say in French, sounds like a K under two conditions. The first one is when it is followed by the vowels A, O, and U. So when it is followed by any of these three vowels, it sounds K. For example, café, café, concombre, concombre, cuisine, cuisine. Exactement. Now, the second condition where the letter C, say in French, sounds like K is when it is followed by a consonant. For example, crier, clé, technique. Exactement. So these two scenarios, the letter C in these two scenarios is known as the hard C sound. It sounds like K. However, there is an exception. The only time a consonant after C completely changes the rule is the letter H. In native French words, CH, CH sounds like sh, sh. For example, chien, chien, chaud, chaud. You won't say co or kion. It's chien, chaud. Moving on, the letter C, say in French, can also sound like an S under two conditions. Now, this one is called the soft C. We've talked about the hard C that sounds like a K, and this one is called the soft C. It sounds like S. Now, the first condition where C sound in French sounds like an S is when it is accented with the accent mark called cédille. The accent mark cédille is like a little accent that is put underneath the letter C, just like you can see on my screen. Now, the entire purpose is to force a soft S sound in places where the letter would normally sound like a K. Don't forget, C will sound like a K when it is followed by a consonant or before the vowels A, O, and U. For example, sa. Ordinarily, this would have been pronounced ka, but because of the accent, the cédille accent, it sounds sa. Another example is garçon, garçon. Another example is reçu, reçu. Exactement. Now, the second condition where C, say in French, sounds like an S is when it is followed by the vowels A, by the vowels O, E, and Y. For example, cerise, cerise, cinéma, cinéma, cycle, cycle. Exactement. So in these instances, the letter C here sounds like an S, and it is called the soft C. All right, let me quickly give a summary of the letter C before I move on. C sounds like a K when it is followed by the vowels A, O, and U. or when it is followed by a consonant, and this is called the hard C. Also, C sounds like an S when it is followed by the vowels O, E, and Y. C can also sound like an S when it is accented with the accent CD. Exactement. Now note this. You will never see C with accent CD in front of O or E, because the standard C already makes the S sound, the C sound naturally before those letters. All right. Now let's move on to another letter, which is the letter G. G also has the hard G and the soft G. The hard G sounds like this. G, G. So when G is used before the vowels A, O, or U, it sounds G, the hard G. For example, gato, gato, guitar, guitar. Now there is also this one. When G is used before a consonant, it also gives the hard G sound, a G sound. For example, grand, grand, glisser, glisser, glisser. Exactement. That is the hard G. Now let's talk about the soft G. The soft G sounds like J, J, J. So G is soft when used before the vowels O, E, and Y. For example, giraffe, giraffe, manger, manger. Exactement. Now let's move on to the letter S. The standard S in French sounds S, S, and at the beginning of a word or when doubled. For example, sac, sac, poisson, poisson. So when S is used at the beginning of a word or when it is doubled, it sounds S. However, S can also sound like Z. When a single S is trapped between two vowels, it will produce the sound Z. For example, maison, maison. So it comes out with the sound Z, Z, maison, because S is between E and O. Maison. Another example is poison, poison, poison. Exactement. So let me go over it again. S, when used in the beginning of a word or when it is doubled, that's SS, would give the sound S. And when S finds itself between two vowels, it gives the sound Z. All right, let's move on to the next one, which is the letter W. 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 Now, W sounds like V in most standard French words. For example, wagon, wagon. However, W can actually sound like a W when you borrow English words. For example, weekend, weekend. Because it's a borrowed English word, so definitely you can use the W in English. Let's move on to the letter X. It sounds X, X. So in most standard words, letter X sounds X. For example, taxi, taxi. However, the letter X can also sound Gz, Gz in words starting with EX and followed by a vowel. So if a word starts with EX and is followed by a vowel, it will make the sound Gz, Gz. For example, examen, examen. Exactement. Now, let's quickly talk about the consonants with fixed sounds. There are a couple of them that they have fixed sounds. So these letters generally will make the same sound as they do in English with maybe very minor differences in breath or tongue placements. B, B. Let's use it in a word. Baby. D, that. F, film. J, jupe. K, kilo. L, lapin. M, mer. N, not. P, pomme. Q, 4. T, tronc. V, vélo. Z, zèbre. So these are the consonants that have a fixed sound. Let's quickly take a look at special French consonant rules. There are a couple of them. The first one is the letter H. The letter H is never pronounced in French. So even though, yes, you will find it in words, it is always omitted. For example, hôtel. Hotel, the H is never pronounced. Hôpital, the H is never pronounced. Another exception or another special French consonant rule is the letter R. 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 Now the French R is produced at the back of your throat. For example, rouge, rouge, rouge. So it has to vibrate at the back of your throat. Now, there are some letter combinations that are also very, very important at this point. The letter C and ash, CH in English, usually would sound like sh, sh. Don't forget, we said that when C is followed by a consonant, it should produce the sound K, k, k. But H is an exception because most of the times H is treated as a vowel. So if H follows the letter C, it is the CH will be pronounced as sh. For example, sha, sha, chapeau. Exactement. We also have the GN. It sounds like ni. For example, espagnol, espagnol. Exactement. We also have the P and ash, PH in English. It sounds like F, F. For example, photo, photo. So the PH will produce an F sound. And the last one on this list is the ELL. It sounds like Y in English. For example, fille, fille. You won't say feel, it's fille, fille. Exactement. As I conclude, I would like to leave you with this golden rule. And this golden rule is about silent final consonants. In French, most consonants at the end of a word are not pronounced. They are silent. And only a few of them are pronounced. Now, you can use this to remember those ones that are pronounced. It's the English word careful. Careful. Now, in the English word careful, there are just 4 consonants. We have the C, R, F, and L. So the letters C, R, F, L are usually pronounced at the end of a word, while the others are silent. So, an example, parler, the T is silent. Par, the S is silent. However, if the word ends with C, R, F or L, it has to be pronounced. For example, sac, sac, the C is pronounced. Jouf, jouf, the F is pronounced. C'est parti, that'll be it for this video. If you enjoyed this video, kindly like, kindly subscribe and share with your friends. And I want to say a very big thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. À très vite.